Welcome to the deep dive. Before Dubai became the symbol of rapid growth, before Malaysia's big surge in the 80s and 90s, there was actually Pakistan in the 1960s.
That's right. It was a period of economic speed, really disciplined growth, too, that often gets, well, overlooked. Or maybe even sidelined today.
Yeah, definitely sidelined. We're diving into a time when a brand new nation basically made this strategic choice, turning faith into factories, fields into exports.
And vision into actual economic velocity.
It's quite a story.
It really is.
And it's this incredible performance, this history. That's why we're focusing on this decade specifically.
Okay.
Our sources, economic analyses, strategic histories, they all point to the 1960s as Pakistan's, its first strategic rise.
First strategic rise. I like that framing.
And our mission here today, it isn't just to, applaud the boom. We need to really dissect it.
Right.
Understand how this huge expansion wasn't some lucky accident. It wasn't just external factors falling into place.
No. It was rigorous. It was deliberate. A strategy that was explicitly designed really as a doctrine for national security, for diplomatic sovereignty.
And when we say boom, we should probably put some numbers on that, because they are, frankly, stunning.
Yeah, they really are.
During that decade, Pakistan became the fastest growing economy in the entire Muslim world, period.
And here's the bit that really shifts your perspective.
Go on.
Their growth rates, industry, agriculture, during that exact time, they actually surpassed countries we often hold up as models now, like South Korea, like Malaysia.
Wow. Okay, so faster than South Korea and Malaysia at that time.
At that specific time, yes. This wasn't just good regional performance. This was world-class stuff.
That comparison, that's the key, isn't it? It changes the whole conversation.
It totally reframes it. It's not about modest success. It's about analyzing a global model that delivered amazing results under, extreme pressure.
And for you listening, why study this now?
That's the crucial question. This moment in history, it offers a real blueprint, proven, for achieving strategic power. And maybe most importantly now, a practical guide for escaping those dependency traps, the ones that snare so many developing nations today.
Dependency traps.
Yeah.
We'll definitely come back to that.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So this is a deep dive into strategic self-reliance, right down to its roots.
Okay, let's start unpacking this. It's a huge achievement. But where did it begin? What was the context? I think it's really important we establish the starting point here. Pakistan was young, very young.
Born out of immense difficulty, yeah.
Colossal disruption from partition, needing to build a nation from scratch almost.
The initial conditions were incredibly tough. Resource-starved, security challenges everywhere.
But the sources we're looking at, they keep saying this hardship wasn't seen as just a roadblock.
No, quite the opposite. It was the crucible, you could say.
Yeah.
It forged this incredibly strict, almost non-negotiable economic discipline.
Survival dictated the pace, right, the rigor.
Absolutely. When you lack infrastructure, deep finances, guaranteed outside help, every single decision you make about where money goes, every policy choice,
it carries so much more weight.
exponentially more weight. And that intense pressure, it forced an efficiency,
Yeah.
a kind of prioritization that, later, maybe richer generations didn't always replicate. So the core idea that comes out of the source material, and this connects directly to works like the nuclear umbrella,
Yes.
is this direct causal link.
Yeah.
That at 1960s weren't just an economic success story, they were the essential foundation, the bedrock for strategic power, and for holding on to it.
So that link to high strategy, to defense credibility,
Yeah.
it's immediate. It's fundamental from the start.
You got it. The argument is you simply cannot build a serious, sustainable strategic posture. Think regional defense, technological ambition.
Right.
Without that disciplined, high-speed economic engine running underneath it all. If the factories are quiet.
Your voice at the diplomatic table gets weaker.
Exactly. Think of economic discipline as the absolute prerequisite for geopolitical freedom of movement.
Okay.
If your economy is always in crisis, currency unstable, food supply shaky, reliant on others.
Your foreign policy options shrink drastically. You're just asking for permission or begging for aid.
The 1960s model tried to eliminate that specific vulnerability.
And the result, the hard number.
The defining result, yeah, it speaks for itself. Pakistan's per capita income doubled between 1958 and 1968.
Doubled. In just 10 years. That's
Yeah.
that's incredible velocity.
It's a stunning acceleration.
And you have to put that in context, too. That rate, it significantly outpaced the average growth in Asia during that same very volatile period.
Right. It wasn't just keeping up, it was setting a new pace. a really ambitious one for the region.
It really was.
And the growth, it was focused,
Mhm.
targeted. The policymakers, they zeroed in on what they called high-impact sectors,
High-impact sectors, meaning?
basically deciding where their limited money would have the biggest ripple effect, the maximum multiplier,
Okay.
which meant tough choices, sometimes suppressing consumer demand, prioritizing huge investments in infrastructure, irrigation, heavy industry instead.
That's the discipline you mentioned.
That's exactly the discipline.
Yeah.
The courage to put off immediate satisfaction for long-term strategic advantage.
And that speed, that velocity, achieved so fast. It's captivating. But, with rapid industrialization like that, the sources call it a miracle, but surely there were challenges. What about wealth distribution? Did the growth create its own problems, like the disparity between West and East Pakistan?
That's a really crucial question, and you're right to ask it. The sources, while they celebrate the overall achievement, they do acknowledge the complexities, the rough edges of rapid state-directed growth.
So it wasn't all smooth sailing.
Definitely not.
No.
While the big GDP numbers were fantastic and national wealth grew fast, the focus, the bulk of the investment, it initially went to West Pakistan, Karachi, Lahore, areas with some existing infrastructure, more entrepreneurial clusters.
And that caused friction.
Huge friction. The goal was strategic independence for the nation, sure, but the benefits weren't shared evenly. And that inequality, that was the political weakness that eventually really complicated things.
So the lesson there is, even with perfect economic discipline, you need political discipline too. Equitable distribution for it to last.
Precisely. Economic success gives you power.
Yeah.
But if you don't manage the internal political fallout of that success, well, it undermines the stability.
Got it.
But the blueprint for creating that economic engine in the first place, that remains incredibly relevant. So let's look under the hood. How exactly did they do it? Right? This is where we get into the structure, the how. The sources are clear. This wasn't luck.
No magic involved.
No magic. They point to 5 specific, very disciplined and crucially interconnected pillars that drove this performance. It wasn't just one policy. It was like a total national effort.
Okay. Pillar number 1, ####A, visionary leadership. Starts at the top, right? Visionary leadership.
What?
The sources point to Field Marshal Ayub Khan's era, the reforms then.
Yes. And what defined his approach, it wasn't just let's grow the economy. It was this careful balancing act.
Balancing.
Modernization on one hand, bringing Pakistan into the industrial age, but always tying that to the absolute need for national sovereignty.
Modernization with sovereignty, not one at the expense of the other.
That's the tightrope walk.
Yeah.
It's the core of the strategic leadership described in the sources. Because usually, modernization in the developing world.
Means external debt, reliance on foreign experts, influence from outside.
Exactly. Loans, conditions, political strings attached. Ayub Khan's reforms, they focus like a laser on building internal capacity first. The philosophy was, we modernize so we don't have to depend on others for basics, for technology, or, importantly, for funding our own infrastructure.
Can you give us an example of that trade-off in action? Sovereignty over, say, speed or ease?
Sure. Take the big infrastructure projects. Pakistan was getting U.S. aid then, part of alliances like Seato, Cento.
Right.
But for huge national projects like the Mangla and Tarbela dams, massive hydro projects, the planning really pushed to maximize Pakistani engineering, Pakistani labor.
Even if it was slower, or maybe cost more upfront than just hiring a foreign company to do it all.
Potentially, yes, because the goal wasn't just build a dam. The goal was build the national capability to build dams.
Yeah.
That's prioritizing capacity over just getting it done quickly.
I see. Building the muscle, not just the monument.
Precisely. That balance, modernity without dependency, that's the signature achievement they point to in that leadership.
Okay, pillar 2. ###the Industrial Revolution. Pillar 2, the Industrial Revolution. Driven by state-led planning. This wasn't laissez-faire at all.
Not even close. The state was an active, aggressive player, directing where capital went, managing foreign currency, setting clear industrial goals through things like the Planning Commission and those famous 5-year plans.
Okay, so where did they direct the money? What were the priorities?
You can track it very clearly. The sources highlight specific industries that got massive state support, using a strategy often called import substitution industrialization.
ISI. Making things at home instead of importing them.
Basically, yes. And the chosen sectors were strategic, picked for necessity, and that multiplier effect we talked about.
Such as?
1, textiles. Makes sense, right? Leverage the agricultural base, create jobs, get some early export income.
Okay.
2, engineering. This was crucial for future self-reliance, not just consumer goods, but building heavy industry capability, machine tools, basic manufacturing gear, assembly plants, making the machines that make things.
Including the machines for the textile mills, presumably.
Exactly, building that foundation. And 3, pharmaceuticals. Vital for domestic health, reduces reliance on expensive Western imports, and it's a high-value export, too.
So the state planning acted like a protective shield, almost. Gave these complex, capital-hungry sectors room to grow without getting crushed by global competition right away.
That's a good way to put it, a shielded environment. And institutions like the Pakistan Industrial Development Corporation, PIDC, were key here.
PIDC, what did they do?
Their job was basically to set up the really big, risky stuff. Heavy industry like cement plants, fertilizer factories, jute mills, things private investors might shy away from initially.
Too expensive, too uncertain.
Right. So the state took the initial risk, built the basic infrastructure through these corporations. Once they were up and running, sometimes they'd be partly privatized, but the state ensured capital flowed into building real structural capacity, not just, candy factories.
Got it. Building the industrial backbone. Okay, pillar 3, hashtag ADC, Green Revolution. Running alongside the industrial push, they tackled food security, the Green Revolution.
Absolute fundamental. The goal, feed the nation without relying on foreign food aid, because that's a massive strategic weak point.
How'd they do it? The method sounds like a huge undertaking.
It was sophisticated,
Yep.
A massive logistical effort, really. The main driver was agricultural mechanization and science.
Not just planting more, but farming smarter, faster.
Exactly. Bringing in high-yield seeds, that famous Mexipac wheat, for example, subsidizing fertilizer, and getting machinery out there, tractors, tube wells for irrigation to drastically boost output per acre.
That sounds like a logistical nightmare in a developing country back then, getting tractors and new seeds to millions of small farms.
It was a national mobilization. The state was heavily involved managing water, providing credit through special farm banks.
And the payoff.
Huge strategic gains. By becoming self-sufficient in key crops, first, they stabilized food prices, kept inflation down.
Okay.
Second, freed up precious foreign exchange that used to go to importing food.
Right, money they needed for the factories.
Exactly. And third, maybe most importantly, remove that major external vulnerability. A nation that can't feed itself is always compromised, right? No matter its army.
Food security is the bedrock of autonomy. Makes sense. Pillar 4. Hashtag export orientation. 4th pillar. Taking all this new production and looking outwards. Aggressive export orientation.
Yes. Not just making stuff for home, but immediately targeting foreign markets to earn the hard currency needed to fuel the whole industrial plan.
This meant using geography strategically.
Absolutely. Key cities, key regions were deliberately developed as major Asian trade hubs. Karachi, obviously, with its big port on the Arabian Sea, that was the gateway for manufactured goods, textiles, engineering products heading west.
And the East Wing. What's now Bangladesh?
East Pakistan was leveraged for its unique resources. Jute, tea, maximizing the country's overall trade portfolio, making it diverse.
So exports weren't just about profit, they were the lifeline. Earning the dollars or pounds needed to buy the advanced machines, the tech they couldn't make yet themselves.
Precisely. It funded the import substitution. Without strong exports, your foreign reserves vanish. The industrial plan stalls because you can't import the specialized tools for the engineering sector, for example.
So the discipline here was, what? Finding markets? Quality control?
All of that.
Yep.
Constantly making sure their goods were competitive internationally. Ensuring domestic production had a ready, high-value outlet overseas, turning local factories into foreign revenue streams.
Okay. And the final pillar. The one that holds it all together. Hashtag institutional discipline. Pillar 5. Institutional discipline. The unsung hero, maybe, making sure all these huge efforts actually worked on the ground.
You could call it the mechanism of precision. And it's often the hardest part, right? Especially in fast-growing economies. It's about the quality of the state itself, its administration.
This is where the plan meets reality.
This is exactly where the rubber meets the road. The whole system, the development banks, the planning commissions, the state-owned corporations, they had to operate with extreme precision. And, crucially, with minimal corruption.
That was a stated priority, keeping corruption low.
The direct priority from the top leadership. They understood that inefficiency, graft. It just bleeds money away from the strategic goals.
Okay, but how? How do you enforce precision? It's easy to say be disciplined, but how did those development banks, PICAC, IDBP, actually make sure the money went to the right places?
Rigorous assessment, clear goals, The Planning Commission set ambitious but very detailed long-term targets in those 5-year plans.
Right.
The development banks then acted as gatekeepers, ensuring capital flowed only into projects that lined up perfectly with those strategic plans, not into, luxury apartments or importing fancy cars.
Channeling the funds effectively.
Yeah.
And transparently.
That level of rigor, that focus, it provided predictability for local investors, for foreign partners too. When institutions work like that, with integrity, and the state actively discourages unproductive spending.
The ambition on paper turns into actual factories, actual output.
Exactly. It was the synchronization, the precise execution across all 5 of these interconnected pillars. That's what delivered the economic miracle. So we've seen the how. Now we need to shift gears. Why does this matter in the big picture? Geopolitically.
Right. Connecting the dots.
The source material is crystal clear on the strategic equation here. It basically says, economic power equals political independence. Full stop.
That's the core link for you, the listener, to really get. If a nation's economy is shaky, always needing bailouts, dependent on outsiders.
Its ability to act freely on the world stage just evaporates.
Yeah.
The 1960s model understood this deeply. Internal, self-reliant production, whether it's food or textiles or medicine, that translates directly into the power to make your own sovereign decisions internationally.
Self-reliance as diplomatic resilience, I think one source called it.
That's a great term for it. Imagine a tough vote at the UN or a tense negotiation with a neighbor.
Okay.
If a big power threatens sanctions or threatens to cut off aid, a self-reliant nation can actually calculate the cost of saying no.
Because their core industries are secure, they can weather the storm.
If your textiles, your engineering, your food supply are largely domestic, you can withstand pressure that would absolutely crush a state, totally reliant on imports and aid. Self-reliance isn't just about wealth, it's diplomatic armor. It protects your interests.
Okay, but let's tackle a tricky point here. The aid versus autonomy dilemma. Pakistan was getting significant U.S. aid in the 60s. Military aid, economic aid, they were in alliances. How do the sources square that with this ideal of self-reliance?
That's the crucial nuance, you're right. And the model they developed then, it demonstrates something important. Foreign alliances, foreign aid, they can work, they can last, but only when they're built on a foundation of internal strength.
Ah, okay.
The argument is the rapid economic growth in the 60s actually gave Pakistan leverage within those alliances. They weren't negotiating from a position of weakness or desperation.
They weren't just beggars asking for handouts. They were a rapidly developing country with a working system that needed maybe specific boosts, not basic life support.
Precisely. If you go into an alliance completely weak economically, you instantly become a client state. Your policies get dictated from outside. The 1960s lesson was, alliances should add to your internal capacity, maybe provide advanced tech, resources for the next stage of growth, but they should never replace the need for internal capacity.
The moment you substitute aid for your own strength.
You fall into the dependency trap, a trap the sources say many are still caught in today and are determined now to break free from.
And this isn't just ancient history we're talking about.
Not at all.
The source material explicitly links this lesson to right now, saying much of the Muslim world today faces similar persistent dependency traps, and that the answer lies in rediscovering that same strict economic discipline from the 1960s to break free from these modern vulnerabilities. It's framed as like a vital instruction manual for today.
It really is. It's the lesson that economic sovereignty is the only real sovereignty at the end of the day. Any foreign policy move not backed by a strong domestic economy, it's just a performance, really. It can be canceled anytime by your creditors. Now, we've talked a lot about the technical side, GDP, banks, factories, policies.
It's a nuts and bolts.
Right, but the sources insist the success of the 60s wasn't just technical. It was also deeply moral and ethical. The state's efficiency, they argue, had roots in the moral code of the people running it.
This goes beyond just economic policy then. It's about what actually powered the human effort, the precision we talked about.
Exactly. The term they use is spiritual productivity. Now, that might sound a bit abstract, maybe vague to some listeners.
Yeah, potentially. How do they define it practically?
They break it down into functional moral factors, things that actually deliver tangible economic results.
Okay, like what?
1, the Islamic work ethic, fostering diligence, accountability, a sense of responsibility towards your job, towards national goals. 2, a strong emphasis on honesty in trade and administration. This is huge. It drastically reduces friction within the economy.
Less need for oversight, less disputes.
Exactly. And 3, A widespread sense of national service. Leaders in industry, agriculture, government feeling they were genuinely building the nation's foundation, prioritizing public good over quick personal gain.
Okay, I want to drill down on that honesty and trade point. How does something seemingly soft like honesty translate into hard GDP growth for someone focused on the bottom line?
It's all about trust. And trust has a massive multiplier effect economically.
How so?
Well, think about it. All economic activity relies on contracts, on agreements being honored. When honesty is high, two things happen. First, transaction costs plummet.
Meaning?
You don't need armies of lawyers, endless audits, complex regulations. If people generally trust, contracts will be kept and the system isn't corrupt. Things move faster, cheaper.
Okay. And second?
Investment risk drops like a stone. If investors, local or foreign, believe their money is safe, that the system has integrity, they invest more. They invest faster. They commit to longer-term projects.
Because they're not constantly worried about being cheated or bogged down in disputes.
Precisely. That accelerates everything. Capital circulates faster. Investment booms. Far more than in a corrupt system choked by friction and distrust. So spiritual productivity in this model meant real, measurable efficiency.
So the moral integrity, the ethics of the people involved, that was like the lubricant for the whole system, allowing those precise planning commissions, those development banks, to actually work as intended.
That's a great analogy. Without that underlying discipline and ethics, the whole machine would have just seized up. Inefficiency, corruption, it would undermine the entire effort.
Right.
So the sources emphasize this wasn't a contradiction. Faith and efficiency weren't separate things fighting each other. They worked together. The moral framework supported the technical success.
The argument being, you can copy the policies, the institutions.
But if you don't have the discipline, the ethical rigor to run them properly, without leakage, without graft, it's doomed to fail.
Which leads to the conclusion for today, right? Any economic revival now needs that same combination.
Exactly. A moral economy fused with modern innovation.
Yeah.
You can have the latest AI, the best defense tech, but if the underlying ethical structure, the administration, is weak,
the whole thing can crumble, resources get wasted, siphoned off, don't reach their strategic goals.
the powerful takeaway is the strongest engine has both high tech and high integrity.
Yeah.
You absolutely need both. The hard skills and the foundational soft skills.
Okay, this focus on foundational strength, on internal capacity, it leads us directly to the ultimate strategic link made in the source material, especially referencing the nuclear umbrella.
Yes, tying the economic past directly to future security goals.
And it's summed up in that really powerful metaphor they use. The missile rises from the mill, the shield is forged in the factory.
That phrase is the doctrine. In a nutshell, it argues that a nation's defense capability isn't just something you buy off the shelf with spare cash.
Yeah.
It is directly, structurally dependent on the strength. And crucially, the self-reliance of your own domestic industrial base.
You can't sustain modern defense tech, let alone develop it.
Unless you have the foundations at home. The mills, the factories, producing the raw materials, the components, the specialized tools, the skilled people to run it, fix it, improve it.
Which connects directly to this idea that economic resilience equals deterrence credibility.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
If your industrial base is strong, diverse, if an opponent knows you can sustain yourself through a long conflict or an economic blockade,
But you can rebuild quickly, keep funding defense without your society collapsing.
that stability itself becomes a massive deterrent, an enduring one.
Think about the actual economics of defense, too.
Go on.
If you need, say, advanced missiles, but you have to import all the special alloys, the guidance systems, the tooling.
Your defense budget is just hemorrhaging cash overseas. You're totally vulnerable to supply chain disruptions, diplomatic pressure from your suppliers.
Whereas if you build the factory first, the mill, you keep that money circulating internally.
Creating a feedback loop, domestic wealth generation, funding domestic defense innovation. Much more sustainable, much more secure.
And the sources make another strong claim here about the continuity of that discipline.
Yes.
They argue that Pakistan's later success in developing nuclear capability, which needed incredible scientific focus, tight project management, secrecy.
All of that was built on the same foundation of discipline laid down during the 1960s economic miracle.
It wasn't a totally new skill set they suddenly developed.
No. That institutional rigor, that commitment to long-term domestic capacity, prioritizing tough goals, the precision, that was the cultural inheritance, the administrative DNA from that intense decade of economic discipline.
Economic capacity made it possible. Institutional discipline made it happen.
Well put.
And looking forward, the vision scales this up, doesn't it? Ties this internal strength to a potential collective defense sustainability.
Yes, through deep economic cooperation among Muslim nations, specifically highlighting that potential Pakistan-Saudi-Turkey axis.
The idea being, if this discipline model worked for one nation.
Imagine applying those same principles, coordinated, planned, across a collective axis like that. It could generate real regional security, genuine economic self-sufficiency, shared strength, protected supply chains. That's the strategic implication.
Okay, let's bring this right up to the present, from history lessons to current events. We're seeing this philosophy play out now, potentially, in the deepening Pakistan-Saudi agreement, right?
That's exactly how the source material frames it. This isn't just another traditional military pact.
Yeah.
They specifically label it economic defense diplomacy.
Economic defense diplomacy. What does that mean in practice?
That distinction is critical. It reflects that mill-to-missile doctrine perfectly. It's a strategic shift where deep economic investment, industrial integration, those are seen as defense measures in themselves. Proactive defense.
So it's about building shared industrial muscle that serves both prosperity and security at the same time.
Exactly. They're intertwined, not separate goals.
And we can see the shape of this potential Muslim economic shield by looking at the specific investment areas the sources mention. They're very future-focused.
Highly strategic, yes. Not just trading basic goods. 3 areas really stand out.
Okay, number 1.
Shared investment in artificial intelligence, AI. Crucial for the future, right? Information dominance, smart defense systems, huge productivity gains. Recognizing the next conflicts are digital too.
Makes sense. Number 2?
Defense manufacturing integration. This is about securing supply chains, achieving real technological independence. If these nations can collectively make advanced defense parts,
They reduce reliance on outside powers, improve how their own systems work together, interoperability.
precisely, eliminates key vulnerabilities. And number 3, energy integration, key for strategic depth. Linking power grids, securing shared fuel supplies. It buffers the whole axis against global energy price shocks, and it insulates them against sanctions targeting their energy sectors to cripple their economies.
So all these investments, they're about creating independence, removing the leverage points others might use against them, just like the goal back in the 1960s, but on a bigger scale.
Exactly. It's a combination of those lessons learned. Build the economic foundation first. Only then is your defense truly credible, truly sustainable. That's the core idea of economic defense diplomacy, a shared recognition that economic weakness is diplomatic weakness.
Which brings us back to the leadership role. The vision is, just like 1960s Pakistan showed developing nations what was possible.
The idea now is for 2025 Pakistan to use that historical blueprint, its scientific base, to help lead this wider group of Muslim nations towards shared prosperity, shared defense independence through this new disciplined axis.
It's aiming for an economic miracle 2.0.
That's the ambition. A deliberate move away from the dependency traps of recent decades, forging a collective future based on those tough, self-reliant principles proven effective 60 years ago.
It's like they're dusting off the old instruction manual and applying it in real time, aiming for sovereign power.
And executing that original principle scaled up massively. From the machine to the missile, from Karachi to Riyadh. Hashtag tag outro.
So reflecting on all this, Pakistan's 1960s weren't just a historical footnote, were they? The sources call it instruction, not just nostalgia.
That's the key takeaway, I think. For you listening, the formula for real national power, sovereign power, seems remarkably consistent, doesn't it? Discipline in your economy, dignity in your diplomacy, and a clear, unwavering direction in setting your goals and actually executing them.
Discipline, dignity, direction.
And it's that consistency, the idea that internal strength fundamentally dictates your external freedom that makes this so relevant right now. Because if the sources are right, that true alliances need internal economic strength, that the shield has to be forged in your own factories, well, that leads to a really provocative final thought for you to consider.
Okay, leave us with this.
What kind of massive global diplomatic shifts might we see? What new centers of geopolitical influence could emerge? If that level of disciplined, self-reliant economic growth from 1960s Pakistan, if that could be successfully replicated and sustained across the entire huge industrial potential of that Pakistan-Saudi-Turkey axis today.
What would that world look like?
That's the potential strategic earthquake of the economic miracle 2.0. Something to think about.